that once we start the actual meeting. All right. And once he gets here, I'm just going to say he'll go. Priyank, is it okay if he goes last and you go third? All right, perfect. All right, so we're just waiting for him to hop on, and in a moment we will start. Okay, so I think he is here now. Sorry, I'm trying to connect to my AirPods, but I'm getting a bit of feedback. Okay, I think. Nope, it's still getting. All right, I think that's a little bit better now. Let's see. So, Alexander, am I saying your name right?
Cassandra, yeah, you got it.
Oh, yeah, I was sorry. I meant Alexander. I think your name's Ryan, actually. Yeah. So sorry if you're getting a little bit of feedback because I can hear that. Alexander, can you hear us right now?
I think he's unmute, but we can't hear him.
Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah.
All right. So I think he might be having some technical difficulties. I will just have someone else message him, and then we can get started with the panel session then.
Claire, just so you know as well, anytime you type, we can hear it very loudly on the
oh, can you? All right. Okay, I'll just mute my mic when I try to type then. All right then. Yeah. So I think we will just get started first. So welcome everybody. My name is Claire and I'm one of the co-presidents on PTC here. And we will get started with today's event, which is our UX panel, where you're going to have the opportunity to ask questions to our lovely panelists here. without further ado, let's get started. I'm just going to ask everyone to give a brief introduction to themselves, their name, and a little bit about what they do, about who they are. So I'll pass it off to Cass first.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cass, or Cassandra. I am a senior UX designer and strategic thinker. Currently, I work at a company called Alida, where I do a whole grab bag of things, from UX research all the way to mock development to working with engineers. And I'm really excited to be here today.
I guess I'll go next. Hi, everyone. So I'm Isabel. As some of you may probably tell from my accent, I'm Singaporean. I'm not local here, but I've been in Canada for just a couple of months to complete my Master's of Information with a UX specialization at University of Toronto. Previously, back in Singapore, I was working for about 3 years in the banking industry. I was working in the private bank as a UX designer. However, at the beginning, I was from a completely different background. I studied economics and business at the National University of Singapore for my bachelor's. From there, I took a career transition to get into UX. So of course, I'm happy to share more about how I did that. Yeah, happy to have you guys here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Priyank, and I work at Snappy Kraken as a UX researcher and designer. I have transitioned in UX for an year now, and initially for almost 8 years, I was working in market research industry, specifically healthcare. And then I transitioned to this. My work specifically being in like a small company, a startup, which is like 5-6 years old. I'm the only UX designer or UX personal in the company. So definitely like end-to-end, each and everything, what comes in for UX, I do it straight from research to mockups and everything. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And Alexander, I apologize for not saying your name right. If your mic is working now, could you please give us a brief introduction about yourself and your job? Okay, if not, that is okay. We can just move on to the questions now. If you want, you can like just type out a little bit about yourself in the chat if that helps. All right, so our first question that we have here is, what made you choose this career path?
Excuse me. That's a very interesting question. To be honest, when I was coming out of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I actually went to school at York University, what feels like a little while ago, for fine arts, doing modern dance, BFA, and Shakespearean studies. And I did that for about 8 years, and I loved it. But as, you know, I kind of edged closer, you know, to my 30s, I kind of thought, you know, there has to be something else that I can do, something else that has transferable skills. And so I thought about my art and what do I like about my art? And after some thinking, I realized it was working with people and problem solving that I really liked. So then I actually went back to school in my late 20s at George Brown College, and I did a 3-year program there. Got an advanced diploma in interaction design and development, and then started networking myself, marketing myself, going to all these conferences, back when we could do that, of course, and made relationships and landed my first job, and, you know, absorbed that way and kind of found, and I'm still, to be honest, and I think this is true for most people, you never really feel like you've arrived. You're still always hungering for like, what's next, or, what else am I interested in, or, what new avenue am I interested in? Because we're always changing as people as well, right? And so now I'm starting to get very interested in UX strategy and persuasive design principles. But yeah, always learning, always changing.
So do I get to answer this as well?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Oh.
We're just going to go in order.
Oh, all right.
So it'd be great to hear from you as well. Thank you.
Right. Actually, my sentiments are also rather similar to Cassandra. From young, I do have an interest in anything that is artistic. I do like visual design. But at the same time, coming from an Asian background, I want to do something that has like a stability in it, hopefully, like bring like my artistic skills into something that I could make a career out of it. So back then, I think when the concept of UX design was still really very young and early at that stage, I was actually considering different professions like digital marketing, graphic designer. And then I realized along the way when I was pursuing my bachelor's in economics and business, that there are actually a few similar concepts and way of thinking when it comes to UX design actually. So I did took some courses back then on entrepreneurship, where I worked with some startups with Israel as well. So there's also one of the experience I had. And over there, yeah, we basically the iteration model when it comes to the design process is very similar to how we handle business as well. And I thought that the balance of logic and emotion in the aspects of UX design suits me very well, which is why I decided to go all out to pursue UX after I complete my bachelor's in that background. So it took quite a lot of explorations in various internships and industries for me to actually figure it out. So my advice is actually, for you high schoolers at this age is to don't rush into a particular field yet. Take your time to explore and figure out what you like as well as what you don't like, and try to connect the dots along the way. Yeah.
Yeah, my journey was like, so I started, I had no clue what to do, definitely in high school. I started so I'm a registered pharmacist. So I started in pharmacy. And then I did my management course for 2 years. Then I transitioned to market research, specifically in pharmacy initially, then to medical devices on the whole healthcare. And then I transitioned to UX. So I think it's always a process, I think, goes in. It's not like day one, you decide something and you just go in that career, and it rarely happens. I think it's always good to have a mix of different careers or different backgrounds, because now being in UX and now learning more about it from different people, I definitely say that initially technology was always, looked by, like, if you're an engineer, then only you can work in an information technology field. But I think UX in this profile was the major breakthrough, which braked this I would say like myth now, I would call it, because now I think people are coming from various backgrounds and flourishing their careers in UX design. And that's the only thing, because at the end point, we always talk day in, day out in UX about users, and users are definitely nothing but, like people from different backgrounds, people who use your product, and they have different backgrounds, different type of people. So definitely it's nice to have people with different backgrounds. And the best thing I like about UX, or why I chose to transition in UX, it's best to see the changes happening in a product that you suggested. And that's the best thing, to see it happening. Because I would say when I was in market research, the thing that drew me back from market research was like, there were a lot of suggestions we used to give, but it was ultimately at the client side, or the decision maker, the CFO, CEO, or the marketing head, they will take the decision that they'll use my suggestions or not. So I think the suggestions were not that valued, and that's what made me switch this career, where every of your suggestion is valued, it is backed by a lot of data, research, everything. You get a chance to learn everything. Being a non-technical person, this back year when I look back, I knew it was definitely intimidating initially, but now I can comfortably talk with developers in their language. So yeah, that's the best thing for me, I guess.
All right, thank you so much for your answers. Alexander, I did see you were connecting to your microphone on there. So if it works, you can unmute and give your answer to the question. It was, what made you choose this career path? And unfortunately, we still can't hear you if you are talking. I did shoot you a message to try to troubleshoot. In the meantime, if you want to type your answers out into the chat, that would work as well. And we're just going to move on to the next question. There is one in the chat right now, and it says, I'm interested in learning more about what exactly UX research entails. What do you guys exactly do on your jobs when conducting research? So we'll start with Cassandra.
Good question, Rick. It is different, I find, depending on what company you work for, because UX research and UX design in general is still fairly new, meaning that it's about 10 years, actively as an active role that you can apply to. I find that there's always different ideas about what it is and what level of intimacy you have with a product. But the general idea is that we come in and you can start research right from the very stage of innovation. So somebody has an idea about a product they want to make, and a potential job that I would have as a UX researcher is going in and doing stakeholder interviews, doing interviews with people that are potentially the demographic that we're trying to target, and figure out what their needs are and what their struggles are, so that we can create something that we call personas. And then from there, we use those personas as a team to kind of guide our designs. And then once we have somewhat of a working product, meaning a screen that you can tap and interact with, then we do what we call UX testing. So usability testing. So that means that I would then, or maybe someone else on my team, would go and recruit a bunch of participants and say, if you wanted to purchase, for example, this hat, can you show me how you would do that? And that participant would go and try and accomplish that task. And then we'd measure a bunch of things like time on task, satisfaction. Are they happy with how they can do this? And there's lots of different tools that we can use to measure these kinds of things. But the idea then is that we improve upon our designs and are constantly reworking until we have something that's really quite strong, and then we launch it. And my job, I work very closely with engineers to understand what kind of tech constraints come in. So for example, if my lead engineer, the person who does the back end or front end coding, says, we can't display it like this, Cass. There's too much what we call, tech debt, or there's things that are kind of a roadblock, right? We work together, so it's a lot of relationship building, a lot of problem solving together with not only people on my team, but people from other teams as well. Pass it to Isabel.
Yeah, thank you. That was really good to hear. For me, I would say there is actually a lot of improvisation involved when it comes to UX research in terms of your limit, like what Cassandra has mentioned, the company you're from, the industry. There are bound to be lots of limitations in terms of resources and time when you get about your design work, as well as your stakeholders' expectations, which, Cassandra has mentioned, like the developers and the engineers as well. So I could share from my own experience back in my private bank I was working in Singapore. So in Singapore, as a UX designer in this private bank, we basically serve high net worth clients. So we we develop products for your rich millionaire, billionaire kind of people. And one of the biggest challenge was to actually get access to these users who happen to be your super rich clients who are super busy every day, and they probably don't have time for you just to do a 1 hour interview for that. So, because ideally, in the UX research process, you will carry out things like interviews, surveys, field research, field studies. However, all this, it's actually very hard to do it when you cannot get access to the users. And at the same time, in the bank, at least, your relationship managers who are handling these clients are also another stumbling block, because they themselves do not want to upset the clients, for taking too much of the time. So it's a matter of improvisation. In this case, we actually took these relationship managers, basically the salespeople who have communicated directly with these users. So we actually reach out to these relationship managers as our proxies when we do our UX research. So we interview these managers to find out what they've experienced from the users, or what do you think they like or don't like. Occasionally, with good stakeholder management, we manage to get access to these clients if the relationship manager thinks that what we are working on will provide great value. So I would say as part of UX research, stakeholder management is also very, very important. Having to establish good relationship with both the salespeople who are in direct contact with the users that you need, as well as your product owners who are managing the product that you're helping them to build. So even for the case of the product owners at the bank, they have their own different set of KPIs, which basically stands for your key performance index. So every staff are given like a set of KPIs to fulfill, and their KPIs as a product owner is very different from our KPI as UX designer. So with this conflict, it's actually at the end of the day, it's really all about how you communicate and how you persuade these people to make sure to convince them that what you're doing will actually add value, both from a business perspective as well as from a user perspective in the long run. So there's a lot of angles and perspectives to look at when you manage your stakeholders. It's more about, at the end of the day, it's basically like UX design for these stakeholders. You want to empathize and understand from these stakeholders' perspective why they think certain things could work or do not work. And I believe that by understanding their viewpoints, it's easy to persuade and work out a solution that benefits both parties when it comes to delivering a design that works for everyone with multiple stakeholders. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I think UX research, to explain in a way that, so it's nothing like, so if I start just, by designing a mock-up and a wireframing something and just designing and now telling my developers that, okay, this is the interface should look like. So they'll ask definitely the question, so why button is like this? Why have you used this term here? Why this title is here? And if I don't have anything to answer them back, so I have not done any UX research, and that product or that interface has been designed by my own personal, and which creates a bias. So that can't be definitely used by all users. So to avoid this and back this by a lot of data, a lot of research to convince the developers, to convince the team, and they get convinced that, okay, this research, whatever inputs or the insights I have, they are definitely supporting, and then they will definitely, approve those kind of designs. They say, okay, I agree, the points you're placing, they definitely hit. And the most important thing, again, the UX research plays, I would say, it's also, as Cassandra was mentioning, that every team has their own planning at the back end. And they have a lot of small projects line up, and definitely nobody wants to mess the planning anytime. But if with the research you have found that it's something important, and if you would like to convince developers that it's really important, I think whatever you have in pipeline, you should just back it and give this as a high priority. And if they ask me back why it is of high priority, I can back it when I do my UX research, which is definitely based on interviews, surveys. It might be also like a video recorded where user is using that product and how he's using, she's using, they're using. So that's the most important part UX research does nowadays. And I think, yeah, that's why it is now slowly each and every organization have now a profile for UX research. Even they have UX designers, they still have started openings for UX research.
All right, thank you so much for the answers. So we're now going to move on to the next question, and that is, what is your favorite and least favorite aspect of your job?
My favorite and least favorite aspect, right, Claire?
Yes, it is.
My most favorite is working with people, working with different people from different teams within my own company, as well as doing that research to understand the problem space. My job is very much relationships, and I like that. The thing that I dislike the most about my job is sometimes my job is to advocate for the user, right? But sometimes people like the C-level, so the CEO, the CTO, all those kinds of pillars at the top of a company, trickle down objectives or tasks for the product and research team to do, which is where I sit. Sometimes the deadlines can be quite aggressive, meaning that they are expecting quick turnaround. And sometimes, unfortunately, what that means is that I have to get creative on how I gather my data. So sometimes they say, Cassandra, we have this great idea for a new product and we want to launch it in 2 months. Can you do it? And I have to go, you have to feel empowered enough to say like, yes, I can do that, or no, I can't. And here's why. But if the answer that we come to, and I have enough support to say, yes, I can do this, then it's fast and an aggressive timeline to, okay, I have 1 week to, something like, for example, recruitment, that usually I give myself a week to do, right? Because it has to be done quite thoughtfully so we get the right people in the right room at the right time. But if I have 2 months, like I just did for a product, then that kind of, turns into, okay, I have 48 hours to recruit 5 people. Okay, now I have 48 hours to run those 5 sessions. Okay, now I have 24 hours to do the analysis of that data. Now I have, and so I obviously have a team with me, but it is, sometimes I think, again, because UX in general is still quite new in the sense that, it's less than 15 years old, about 10 years old. Sometimes people that are higher up in the business don't always understand the intricacies of what me and my team does. And sometimes that's frustrating. And so I have to remember that it is also my job, not only to do my job, but to get buy-in from the higher up people so that we can make useful products and not just make products to make products, right? So again, I'll go back to my job as relationships, which circles back to why I like my job. But it's not as formulaic as sometimes it may appear. Pass it to Isabel.
It's very interesting what Cassandra shared, because for me, what I like and don't like is actually the other way around. It's clear. So to me, yes, I think what she mentioned about dealing with the C-level managers and multiple stakeholders that is challenging due to the different perspectives and expectations. For me, yes, it is a challenge. I think it's probably a common challenge for most UX designers, but for some reason, I see it as quite a fun challenge. Yeah, it's like, a challenge that I mean, the sense of fulfillment is much bigger when you are finally able to convince the C-level with what you have to offer. Yeah, there are many cases in the past where the C-levels will refuse to provide funding for certain design projects because they do not see the long-term monetary value in it. And it's also very expensive to conduct research in that area when there are already other areas that's giving them much more money. So it took quite like a number of research interviews and basically being creative in how you collect data to actually convince these C-level managers. So probably that's actually one of my favorite part of being a UX designer. It's so multifaceted that it's more than just it's not, I would say it feels more like a desk-bound, more than a desk-bound job. You're not just designing and doing desktop research, you're actually going out there to gather feedback and insights. And at the same time, you're doing all this to ensure that you can convince your managers, basically to get in some buy-ins to fund your project more. So like I said, it's a lot of relationship building and stakeholders management besides just the work that you do on your computer. What I don't like, I mean, it's not really, on the other hand, what I don't like, it's actually on the contrary to probably the irony, it's working directly with the users sometimes. So don't get me wrong, I do enjoy talking to people and communicating with people. It's more of the post-study analysis and work that takes a great deal of brain work involved that can actually make me feel very tiring and frustrating, especially when you're getting a lot of data and insights from multiple users and perspectives. You probably need a couple of people to help you out to consolidate all this data together. So I would say, at least from my experience, the research process is actually much more tedious and a long haul than doing the actual design itself. So yeah, the research process, yeah, to me, it's very tedious, it's tiring. I do enjoy the idea of communicating, but the planning and the processing of data behind it is just something that I'm still trying to get used to.
Yeah, for me, I think my favorite thing is when you interview your stakeholders 3 months back or 6 months back, and you collected something, you made that change, which actually saved their time or saves their time now, that particular development in the product, and they get back to you with a thank you email and being so generous about it later on. So I think that thank you or the change that you made in somebody's work, even if it's their professional work, but they are happy with something that change made. I think that drives me, or that's the favorite part of me in UX, where you can actually feel that, okay, you made some change in somebody's life because it's definitely benefiting them in some way. So I think that's the favorite part for me. My least favorite is definitely a few times it happens that you do your research, you have a lot of things backed for proving that definitely it's going to benefit in a way, but especially it's for our product. So our product is definitely, it has two different, I would say, interfaces. One interface is specifically used by the people who pay money to a company, and the other interface is specifically for the other part of product, and they are not directly the clients or who pay the money. So whenever I do some research and something specific about that particular interface, and when I'm trying to tell them that definitely it's going to, benefit this way in a user, but sometimes it's like, I think we should give priority to this one rather than this. And when the priority changes, sometimes it feels initially, kind of like bad, like you invested so much time, so much, and you believe that this definitely will do something, or that change will happen. But again, as mentioned by everyone, that C-level people, or they have their own priorities, they have their own roadmap with them, and if that doesn't fit in that, but you think that's right, but still, if they don't think it definitely goes in shelf. And if it goes in shelf, it feels bad. I think that's the, I think, not favorite part of for me. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much for the answers. And I think that Alex has put one of his answers in the chat as well. So to any listeners out there, you can also read the chat for some answers. And then we have a question in the chat, and I think you're interested in building a design portfolio. So the question reads, I have never created a portfolio before. So what are some tips to get started? And what are some things to add to a portfolio?
Good question. I believe that's from Rick again. To start, you have to think this portfolio or your personal website is how you market yourself. It's how recruiters come and stumble across your work. It's their first impressions. And first impressions are so important. So besides, the kind of secondary things, which is, your branding and, how you, the tone of how you deliver your information, I really want to focus on the meat of what a portfolio should have. And it should be, your name, your resume, your way to contact you, and a bit of work that you've done. When you get to the work that you've done, I would say do not put everything under the sun in there. You really want to think about, okay, what are 3 really good projects that I've worked on that kind of foreshadow where I want to work in the future. Like if I'm looking to get in to UX design at a hospital or something, my case studies should maybe have some dashboard things. Maybe if I've had experience working in other healthcare products, I should put that in there. Anything that can kind of, you can tailor to the sector that you want, you should do that. And when you get into the actual part of like a single piece of work or a project, remember that people don't read a lot of copy. People are not going to sit there and read, anything more than 500 words. 500 words is being generous. So think about, okay, what's the problem space? What's the research I did? And then what was the solution? And if you can even give it those titles, that really creates a nice hierarchy for a recruiter to go, okay, they have a pretty, clear design thinking process. And I can kind of understand how you came to your solution. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what I would say. I'll pass it to Isabel.
Yeah, I think Cassandra has covered a lot of the key important tips to include on your portfolio. I would say, to answer that question on how you can get started, I think my short answer would be to just do it. You don't really necessarily need to have a full-fledged UX background to create that portfolio. You don't have to be working professionally before that. For my case, when I was transiting from a typical financial career over into UX design. Similarly, I didn't have any portfolio at all. I actually leveraged on some old school projects that I was doing in my co-curricular activities, you know, like simple visual designs, some video games, to put it as like a small portfolio to show like what side skills I may have that's compatible to UX. But of course, at the same time, it would help if you also just like do some self-initiative to come up with your own design projects. There are actually a lot of online resources out there that you can look up, you know, to pick up some small freelance projects that you're interested in. Back then, I was actually helping out with a startup while I was doing my studies. When I was just starting out in my fresh graduate career. So I was actually helping another startup on the side to get some UX experience, you know. So it was actually there where I first picked up Figma, even before I pursue my master's right now in this field. So I pick up like Figma and then do your own self-learning through some projects that you pick up on your own. So like Cassandra said, the process is more important than the final product that you put on your portfolio. Most employers would like to see your thought process behind it on how you actually derive the final product. So things like the problem statement, the research, and the design things are actually good to mention. You don't just, it's kind of different from your regular visual art portfolio or your photography where you just put the final product there. They do want to see your thought process behind it. So that's why even for your own personal projects when you start, it is very important to constantly get user feedback, to continuously iterate the product. Your first design is not the end point. Keep redesigning it and show that in your portfolio to show the process behind on how you make the changes over time. So yeah, that's what I can say.
Yeah, I think my advice would be treat your portfolio as a product, and you being a UX designer, you're designing that particular product for the users who are actually the hiring managers who are hiring you. So just keeping in mind what they would like to look at in your portfolio, what would they prefer, how much time they have, which things you should highlight, which should you not. So it's like treat that, I would say, portfolio as a product and design it accordingly, spend some time. I think there are pretty nice articles, videos everywhere, people talking about portfolios. I would recommend you what I did. I definitely watched a lot of multiple videos because from each and every expert, you definitely learn something that you can add. It's a pretty nice tip. And then you can, as Cassandra mentioned, that if you are focusing on a specific industry, like suppose hospitals or healthcare, then try to put those kind of projects that you did and something like that. And I think it's always good to practice, because I think being in the initial stage of your career, it's always good to volunteer in a way, or do a part-time, short part-time project if you get something. Every project is important, because I think you can always showcase it in your portfolio in a way that what you learned. And I think the most important slide of every project you should have, other than is like the takeaway. What was the most important thing? What was the takeaway thing from that particular thing? Because I think a hiring manager also would like to know what you learned from the project. You might have found out a really nice solution, all the problems were solved, everything was done, but what was also your learning process apart from your thinking process? And so I think a takeaway slide also works like magic. They know that what you learned. So yeah, that's an experience to share. I think that's it.
All right, thank you so much for all the insightful answers, and I hope that answered your question, Rick. And unfortunately, it is almost 12:30, which is when the panel wraps up, so I think we have time for one more question. So I'm just going to open the floor to the attendees first, just to see if they have any. And if not, I think a good last question to wrap this all up would be, what is your number one piece of advice for any high school students out there who want to go into UX design?
Be curious and do things that scare you within reason. You know, be curious. There's so many different kind of subgroups and like very narrowed career trajectories that you can get in with UX. So don't feel like you have to have it all figured out at first. Be curious. Like I believe someone else said on this panel, knowing what you don't like is just as important as knowing what you do like. And be brave, be courageous in the sense of, even though you might not know how to do something, or you might not know what the outcome might be, take courage and do things that scare you in a safe environment that has low risk. And school is a great place to do that. I often joke with you know, some of my colleagues and say I miss the security blanket of school, because that was the time when, especially when I was just starting out, where I was the dreamer, I thought of all the blue sky, you know, blue sky meaning there's no business or tech constraints. I want to make this really cool thing. Okay, let's, you know, start, you know, how am I going to do my research? How am I going to make something that's useful to help X group of people? So know that's cool. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but take it as a blessing, because that's the time where you can literally fall down with no repercussions. And even when you get out, try and keep that energy alive within you to take calculated risks and continue growing.
For me, I would say, at least at the beginning of your UX career, having the right mindset and frame of mind is actually more important than the technical skill sets that may be required in the UX job. So of course, you know, you have various aspects of hard skills like maybe a bit of front-end coding, design, prototyping, testing. But more importantly, it's good to have you need to have the right frame of mind to understand how to deliver the design process from end to end correctly, you know, to avoid additional costs that may accumulate in the future. So I've seen this a lot in the bank where I was working previously, where a lot of people go into UX design while carrying out their projects in a very waterfall style method. So in most cases, UX, the way we conduct UX is very lean and agile, you know, where we work with a flat hierarchy of cross-functional teams on a constant iterative basis. But coming from a bank environment, a lot of people prefer to do it in a very stage-by-stage approach, you know, that stretches a long period of time. So because of a lot of unnecessary time and resources put at the early stage, you know, we fail to test our product, and eventually at the end of the stage, we realize that the product is not working, and that takes out our cost. So going to this field, focus more on developing the right mindset and design frameworks to know how you can apply in the actual design work. I believe that's also the reason why it's a very multifaceted area. We see lots of people from the business field, finance field, engineering field, all coming into the UX industry, particularly because the soft skills of this design process outweighs the kind of technical skills that you have to offer in the UX industry. So focus more on that, at least at the early stage. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that as everybody mentioned, that staying curious is, I think, the most important thing in UX. And I would say don't stop your learning process, because I would say, and not just like on everyday job you learn everything for sure, but I think taking small courses, updating your knowledge is also important. It's always learning is a continuous process. Like you should learn at the end, like there is no end to this, right? And I would say treat this profession in a way that always having something in mind that how will you improve somebody's life. Have this always thought in you, in your conscious, because I think that's the important part of this profession. This affects everybody's life a long way, the way UX designers work. So I think work definitely take it as a responsibility and work towards really for like benefiting somebody's life. What you do, always have I think this thought in mind. And yeah, apart from that, I would say as slowly this particular like profile is also now has been already segmented now in different parts. Like now you have a different profile for UX research, you have interaction designers, you have visual designer. There are different n number of now terms coming up. So I would say initially learn about everything, end-to-end process, look for profiles where you can work on each and every part of it, and later stage of your career, slowly focus on one that you liked, because I think it's always good to know how the whole process works. And it's always nice to learn everything end to end, and then slowly moving into an expertise. If you like visual designing, go slowly into that. Interaction designing, UX researcher, if you want to be a UX researcher, go slowly into that. But I would say definitely look for a profile which definitely gives you a nice mix of everything, and yeah, you will get a chance to learn everything. So yeah, thanks.
All right, thank you for all your answers. And I think we do have one question in chat, actually. I think Rick wants to know more about the master's program. So this is a question for Isabel. It just says, can you talk more about your master's program at Toronto?
Sure, yeah. I was actually trying to type it out, but yeah, I think it would be easier for me to answer this directly. Okay, so right now I'm in my second year of my master's program at University of Toronto. Under that program, I'm actually doing a co-op, which is basically an internship with a different company at this point. So I would say the curriculum is pretty much hands-on with a lot of practical skill sets and knowledge that they would teach you in the course. That's something I really appreciate from the program under U of T. It's not so theoretical, and I even end up teaching and sharing with my current colleagues now on certain UX things that we should try to apply in the current job. So they really go, so in the curriculum, they deep dive into things like information architecture, user interface design, testings, user testings, usability tests. So I would say it's a very holistic program. It's very holistic as they really deep dive into the topics. In contrast to like your general online courses. Okay, back in Singapore, I have people asking me, why can't you just take some short course, like from Google or General Assembly, which is really very popular back in Singapore. They're asking, why can't you just take that? Why are you pursuing a master's? Personally, for me, I feel that in the long run, if you would like to pursue UX long term, of course, experience is important, but the knowledge and skill sets that you fully master would be really very helpful in the long run, especially when you start managing UX projects, be it as a product owner or project manager. So I feel that it is an area that is worth mastering. Short courses usually teach you the breadth of it. They don't really go deep dive into certain aspects like how you could how do you optimize the information architecture of the map, of the website, or certain various tips on best practices for user interface design, those kind of things. It's usually quite a touch and go format for short courses, I feel. Other than that, otherwise, they will just leave up to you for you to do your own personal research on the computer, which works as well. But I do feel that through this master's program, yeah, it provides me a good set of tools to get started with UX, and hopefully, hopefully to apply it to my job. So yeah, so far I'm actually kind of liking the program.
All right, well, I hope that answered your question, Rick. That was a very detailed answer, Isabel, so thank you so much for that. And I think it is just about time to start wrapping up the panel session now. I'd like to thank all of our wonderful panelists here today, Priyank, Isabel, Cassandra, and Alex. I know you were having some technical difficulty issues, but thank you so much for sticking around. It was great having you here and seeing some of your answers in the chat. And yeah, just thank you so much to all our panelists for your dedication to education, and as well, it's so great to hear people who are so passionate about their topics talk about anything to high schoolers, really. It's great having you all here. And thank you as well to our attendees who came out. Tomorrow, we will be going over our keynote session with Professor Dominguez from the University of Waterloo. So it'll be great to see you there as well at 10 a.m. And it was great having you all here. Thank you so much for coming out. And does anyone have any last minute questions? If not, then I think we'll just end it here. So thank you all so much for coming out, and take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.